I always knew my father saw me as an investment rather than a daughter. Growing up in the Chen household meant quarterly performance reviews instead of birthday parties, ROI calculations instead of bedtime stories. Richard Chen, CEO of Summit Technologies, didn't raise children, he groomed future assets. My earliest memory is sitting in his vast corner office at age 6, my feet dangling from the leather chair as he explained market capitalization. "Pay attention, Sophia," he'd say, eyes never leaving his Bloomberg terminal. "Everything in life can be quantified. Success, failure, even people." I paid attention. Oh, did I pay attention? While other kids played with dolls, I studied financial statements. When teenagers went to parties, I interned in every department of Summit Technologies, learning the business from the ground up. Not because father asked, he was too busy with his golden child, my brother Marcus, but because I saw something in those endless rows of numbers that others missed. Potential. Patterns. Power. Mother tried to give me some semblance of normalcy, sneaking in small acts of maternal love between father's rigid schedules. "You're more than your metrics, sweetheart," she'd whisper, helping me with calculus homework at midnight. She died when I was 15. Brain aneurysm. Father treated it like a disappointing quarterly report, an unfortunate setback, but nothing that should impact overall performance. I graduated from MIT at 19, double majoring in computer science and business. Father barely attended the ceremony, leaving right after taking the requisite photo for Summit's PR department. Marcus got a Ferrari for finishing his MBA. I got a middle management position in Summit's struggling cybersecurity division. "Prove your worth," father said, dropping the assignment letter on my desk. "Marcus will be taking over as CEO in 5 years. Show me you can at least manage one division competently." That was 3 years ago. In that time, I turned cybersecurity from Summit's weakest link into its fastest growing division. Our new security protocols became industry standard. Major contracts rolled in. The stock price doubled. Father never acknowledged any of it. Every presentation, every success, was met with the same cold stare and one question: "But how can you improve these numbers?" Then came the project that would change everything. I discovered a vulnerability in Summit's core software platform, one that competitors could exploit to steal client data. More importantly, I found a solution, a revolutionary AI-driven security system that could adapt to threats in real time. The development costs would be high, but the potential return was astronomical. I spent 6 months preparing the perfect presentation, accounting for every possible objection. Father scheduled the meeting for a Wednesday morning. I should have known something was wrong when I saw Marcus smirking in the conference room. "Absolutely not," father said, barely glancing at my carefully prepared slides. "The costs are excessive. The timeline is unrealistic. The entire concept is fundamentally flawed." "But the vulnerability," I started, "has already been addressed," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "My team has developed a more cost-effective solution." I stared at him. "Your team? You don't even have a technical background." "No," father said, standing up. "But he understands business. ROI. Strategic thinking." Each word felt like a blade. "Unlike some people, Marcus knows how to make sound investments." That's when I saw it, the way they exchanged glances. The slight nod Marcus gave. They weren't just rejecting my project. This was coordinated. "In fact," father continued, "given your recent performance, we're restructuring the cybersecurity division. Marcus will be taking direct control, effective immediately." The betrayal shouldn't have hurt. After 25 years of emotional neglect, I should have been immune. But something in me cracked. "You're making a mistake," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside. "That vulnerability is real. Marcus's solution won't." "Enough." Father's fist hit the table. "You're a failed investment, Sophia. I gave you every opportunity to prove yourself, and you've disappointed me at every turn. Clear your desk by morning." Marcus didn't even try to hide his triumphant smile. I stood up slowly, gathering my papers. "Of course, father. I'll have everything cleared out tonight." Finally learning obedience, he sneered. Too little, too late. If he had looked closer, he might have seen my slight smile. Might have wondered why I was taking my dismissal so calmly. Might have remembered that he wasn't the only one who taught me about investments. Mother had left me more than just memories of midnight study sessions. She left me shares in Summit Technologies, shares that father had dismissed as insignificant, shares that I'd spent the last 10 years quietly multiplying through careful investments and proxy companies. Shares that, combined with the holdings of certain board members who owed me favors, amounted to a controlling interest in Summit Technologies. Father had 7 days until the annual board meeting. 7 days until he discovered what I'd learned from all those childhood lessons about quantifying everything, including revenge. Walking out of that conference room, my heels clicking against the marble floors of the empire he thought he controlled, I touched the small pendant I always wore, Mother's last gift to me. Inside was a microchip containing everything I needed: proof of Marcus's incompetence, evidence of Father's mismanagement, and documentation of my own successes. Let them celebrate their victory tonight. In 7 days, they'd learn what a failed investment could really do. I had one stop to make before clearing out my office. Down in the IT department, away from the executive floors, Sarah Zhang was waiting. She'd been my first hire in cybersecurity, brilliant and underestimated, just like me. "Is it time?" she asked, seeing my expression. I nodded. "Begin protocol, Aurora." Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, initiating the program we'd spent months preparing. Not a virus or anything destructive. We weren't criminals after all. Just a sophisticated monitoring system that would document every change Marcus and his team made to our security protocols. Changes that, based on the preliminary report I'd seen on his desk, would catastrophically weaken our defenses. "How long?" I asked. "The system will be fully operational in 6 hours," Sarah replied. "Every modification, every access attempt, every potential breach, we'll have it all documented and time-stamped." Perfect. I smiled, thinking of the board meeting ahead. Keep me updated. Back in my office, I began methodically packing my belongings. Photos, awards, the evidence of a career spent trying to earn the approval of a man who saw people as numbers on a spreadsheet. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Don't forget to hand in your keycard, sis. Wouldn't want you accessing anything you shouldn't." I took a deep breath, channeling Mother's quiet strength. Marcus always did underestimate the quiet ones. As night fell over the city, I took one last look at the office I'd worked so hard to earn. Father thought he was teaching me about business all those years. Instead, he taught me something far more valuable. Everything in life can be quantified: success, failure, even revenge. The next 7 days would prove just how well I'd learned that lesson. End of part 1. Part 2, the preparation and power play. The next morning, Summit Technologies buzzed with rumors. Words like restructuring and family drama echoed through the corridors as I walked to my office one last time. Employees quickly looked away when they saw me, their pity almost palpable. If they'd looked closer, they might have noticed I wasn't walking like someone who just lost everything. My steps were measured, confident. Every click of my heels against the marble floor was one step closer to victory. Marcus was waiting in my office, lounging in my chair like he already owned it. "Just making sure you don't forget anything important," he said, rifling through my desk drawers. I set my box of personal items down carefully. "How thoughtful of you, brother." "Oh, come on, Soph." He leaned back, trying to look magnanimous. "Don't be bitter. This is just business. You know how it works, survival of the fittest." I thought of the monitoring program Sarah had activated last night, already documenting every change his team was making. "Indeed I do. Tell you what," he continued, standing up. "I'm feeling generous. Stay on as a consultant. Lower salary, of course, but at least you won't be completely unemployed. What do you say?" I smiled, thinking of Mother's words. "Patience, sweetheart. The best moves in chess are the ones your opponent doesn't see coming." "That's very kind," I replied, "but I have other plans." Marcus shrugged. "Suit yourself. Don't expect a reference letter." As he swaggered out, I noticed he left muddy scuff marks on my chair. Typical Marcus, always leaving messes for others to clean up. The next 6 days were a carefully orchestrated dance. While Father and Marcus celebrated their victory, I set my pieces in motion. First stop, Amanda Chen, our cousin and head of legal. She'd always been neutral in family disputes, caring more about corporate law than corporate politics. Her eyes widened as I laid out the evidence of Marcus's technical incompetence. "These security modifications he's implementing," she said, reviewing the logs Sarah was collecting. They're not just inefficient, they're potentially negligent. If there's a breach, the company could be liable, I finished. Shareholders could sue. Amanda looked up sharply. Does Uncle Richard know? Father sees what he wants to see, but the board might feel differently. She nodded slowly. I'll prepare the necessary documentation, just in case. Next was David Wong, our aging CFO. He'd been with Summit since before I was born, and I knew he'd been concerned about Marcus's lavish spending. Look at these projections, I said, showing him the real numbers behind my rejected security system. Compare them to Marcus's solution. David's fingers traced the columns, his frown deepening. These cost overruns, the maintenance requirements, this is unsustainable. The board meeting's in 4 days, I reminded him. They'll want your honest assessment. He gave me a shrewd look. Your father won't like that. The shareholders might like it even less if they don't get it. 3 days before the meeting, I visited Helen Park, one of our longest-serving board members. She'd been Mother's friend, though Father had forgotten that. Your mother would be proud, Helen said as we had tea in her penthouse office. She always said you saw patterns others missed. Father missed quite a few, I replied, showing her the shareholding documents. Her eyes sparkled as she understood the full picture. Richard always did underestimate the quiet ones, she mused. I'll make some calls. The other board members should be prepared. The day before the board meeting, I received an urgent message from Sarah. They're implementing Marcus's changes tonight. It's worse than we thought. I logged in remotely to review the data. Marcus's team was dismantling our most critical security protocols, replacing them with superficial patches that looked good on paper but left us dangerously exposed. Keep tracking everything, I instructed. Tomorrow we show them exactly what cost-effective really costs. That evening, Father called. I watched my phone ring, remembering all the times I desperately wanted his approval. Now, I let it go to voicemail. Sophia, his voice was gruff. Your brother tells me you've been discussing company matters with board members. Remember your NDA. Don't do anything you'll regret. I played the message twice, noting the slight tremor in his voice. He was worried. Good. The morning of the board meeting dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in Mother's favorite power suit, her pendant nestled at my throat. Sarah met me in the lobby, tablet in hand. Latest security logs, she reported. 3 attempted breaches overnight. Marcus's team didn't even detect them. Perfect timing, I smiled, ready to show the board what real cybersecurity looks like. The boardroom was already tense when I arrived. Father and Marcus sat at the head of the table, but several board members were huddled in quiet discussion. Helen caught my eye and nodded slightly. Before we begin, Father announced, I want to address the recent restructuring of our cybersecurity division. Actually, Helen interrupted smoothly. We have some concerns about that restructuring. Perhaps Ms. Chen could share her assessment. Father's face darkened. Sophia is no longer. I'm happy to share my findings, I said, standing. Sarah distributed tablets to each board member. In fact, I've prepared a comprehensive analysis. For the next hour, I laid out everything. The critical vulnerability I'd discovered, Marcus's inadequate solution, the documented security failures of the past week. With each slide, each piece of evidence, I watched Father's empire crumble. This is ridiculous, Marcus sputtered. These numbers err. Verified by our CFO, David interjected. I can confirm Ms. Chen's projections. The liability issues alone, Amanda added, could be catastrophic. Father slammed his hand down. I am still CEO of this company. About that, Helen smiled. I believe we should discuss the shareholding structure. I opened Mother's pendant, retrieving the microchip. Allow me to share some interesting numbers. As I displayed the true ownership breakdown, showing how I'd quietly accumulated controlling interest, I watched Father's face. For the first time in my life, I saw him truly shocked. How? He whispered. You taught me well, Father. Everything can be quantified. Success, failure, even power. The vote was swift and decisive. By noon, I was CEO of Summit Technologies. Father was offered early retirement, and Marcus was welcome to try finding another job with his newly documented track record. As security escorted them out, Father turned to me one last time. I didn't think you had it in you. That was always your problem, I replied. You never really saw me at all. Later that evening, I sat in my new corner office, the same one where I'd once dangled my feet from an oversized chair, learning about market capitalization. Sarah brought in a bottle of champagne. "Congratulations, CEO Chen," she grinned. "Want to hear something funny? Remember that vulnerability you found? The one Marcus couldn't handle. What about it?" "I just finished analyzing it. You'll never guess who coded that section of our platform originally." I raised an eyebrow. "Your father, 20 years ago. He wrote the bug that ultimately brought him down." I laughed, thinking about patterns in karma and the way life sometimes comes full circle. On my desk, next to my new CEO nameplate, I placed a framed photo of Mother. "You were right," I whispered to her smiling image. "I am more than my metrics." Picking up my phone, I began drafting a company-wide email. Summit Technologies was about to show the world what happened when leadership valued innovation over ego, collaboration over control, and actual results over appearance. Father had always said everything in life could be quantified. He just never realized that some things, integrity, vision, true leadership, added up to more than he could calculate. As for me, I had a company to run, employees to champion, and a legacy to build. One that would be measured not in quarterly reports, but in lives improved and potential realized. After all, that's what Mother would have wanted, and as it turns out, she was the best investment of all.